Okay, this is video number 3. I'm going to try something different this time. I'm going to talk about the questions that are in the quiz. They're not shuffled. The answers are shuffled, but the questions aren't shuffled. So the answers, the questions will be in the same order as this video. So I'm going to draw the parts demonstrated in Chapter 3. The part looks like this, called a locator. And looking at this part, I'm going to start with rectangle, and then I'm going to add a circle, and then I'm going to give, after I give the rectangle thickness, then I'm going to do the circle. I'm going to start a circle on the bottom side of this part. So I'm going to orbit that around a little bit, and then I'm going to give that thickness the cylinder, and then I'm going to make a cut, and then I'm going to cut this hole here, and then I'm going to cut a rectangle over here to give that, to make that hole, the slot, go all the way through. So this one is going to be a metric drawing. So the first thing I want to do is left click on New, so it brings me up to this dialog box. Otherwise, I may skip this altogether and it may pull whatever the last drawing that I did. But you can see there's different folders. There's an English, there's a metric. So we want to left click on the metric folder, and we want to choose Standard IPT and create. So the first thing we want to create is a rectangle. I'm going to start a sketch. This time I'm going to start it on this XZ plane. So my view moves around. I'm going to use rectangle, but instead of using the 2-point rectangle, I'm going to use a rectangle that's, I like to use 2-point center. This way I can center my rectangle over my origin. So as soon as I got close to that, it turned green. And so I'm going to draw this rectangle, and then I'm going to put dimensions in. So this side is 75, and then get out the screen here and measure this one was 50. Okay, so then I'm going to right click, finish sketch, and then zoom out a little bit, extrude, and the thickness is 15. Doesn't matter if you go up or down. Click OK. So I want to view the back side of this. You know, you can use your view cube here, and I can turn this around so that I can actually see the bottom of that. So I'm going to start a sketch on the bottom, and now I'm going to draw a circle, and I want to find the center of that line. You see it turns green, and then I want to snap on the outside of that line. Now, just to be sure that that is snapped and I've got the right diameter, I'm going to click on dimension and click on that, and it's a driven dimension. That's okay. It's just saying that this circle is already specified by snapping to this edge. Okay, so now your first 3 questions in the quiz are about Boolean operations. Boolean just has to do with mathematical logic and different functions, and there is math involved in creating solids. But the Boolean operations are all under extrude, so I'm going to show you those. Right click, finish sketch, and then I'm going to use extrude. So these are your Boolean operations: join, cut, and interfere. And you can see, let me slide this out of the way so you can see what the different ones do. If I do join, then you can see it adds that cylinder shape to the other one. If I do cut, it will cut it from that part. And if I do interfere, it will only show what they have in common. So I'm going to use join, and I want this to go the other direction from the bottom up, and I want that to be 40. So if you want to pause the video and answer those 3 questions, you can, because those will be the first 3 questions about Boolean operations. Okay. The next question is about grid lines. Some of you like grid lines. I'm not a big fan of grid lines, but something that we discovered, one of my students mentioned yesterday, is they like the grid lines because it helps them distinguish whether or not they're in sketch mode. So get to the grid lines, you go to Tools, and then you go to Document Settings, and then you go to I'm sorry, I did that wrong. Application Options and Sketch. I think they both have a Sketch tab. But you can see I can turn these on. If I click on Apply, they don't show up in the feature mode, but they do show up in sketch mode. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to open up one of my sketches just so you can see. Edit Sketch, and you can see I see my grid lines. So you can pause the video now and answer the question concerning the grid lines. If I want to be able to snap to the grid lines, or I want to be able to change the number of grid lines, if you see all these grid lines there, then that one is under Tools, Document Settings, and this is another question if I didn't mention that, and Sketch. So both of those do have a Sketch tab. Now you see this is my snap spacing, and I can change the number of grid lines here if you want to do that. So I click OK, and so I'm done looking at the sketch. So if you'll watch the screen, right click, Finish Sketch, you see the grid lines go away. So that's one way, if you do like the grid lines, that you can tell whether you're in sketch mode. If I right click over here, Edit Sketch, grid lines come back again. Right click, Finish Sketch, they go away. Now I used the navigation view cube up here to show you how I could get to different surfaces, but I can also I can hold down the Shift and move the mouse wheel. That's one of your questions too. Shift, hold down the mouse wheel, and see I can get to the back, front, whatever side I want to, and you don't have to worry about right clicking to exit like you do when you're in Orbit. See, Orbit works like this, but you have to right click OK to get out of it. And I'm just going to click back on my house again to line me up. So if you want to pause the video now and answer the question about a shortcut, I'm going to start another sketch on this surface, and I want to draw a hole. I want to be able to snap to the center of this circle, and then I'm going to put a size on here. The hole in the middle is 30. And then I'm going to right click, Finish Sketch, and then I want to do an extrude with that, but I want this to be the cut function of extrude, and I'm going to make it all the way. Click OK. And now, in most cases, when we've been drawing, when we've been creating features and drawing apart, we've had to use a sketch for every feature. So there is a feature, actually there's more than one, the one we're going to talk about today, that you don't have to create a sketch first. So this one, so the whole command is located on the 3D Model tab, and this is one of your next questions. The whole command is a placed feature. Some of the others, like this hole, was a sketched feature, but this one is a placed feature, and we'll be able to do that later with fillet and chamfer and some of the others. So we're going to click on hole, and so when we first get started, we want to touch on the surface that we want to place a hole. It doesn't matter where we place it. We want it somewhere on here. It doesn't matter because we're going to give some dimensions. So as soon as I left click, you see it puts a hole in there. Here I want to use the type of hole. I want it to be a simple hole. Termination, I want it to be through all, and it shows in a direction that does work out with my part, and I want it to be 20. Okay, before I hit enter, I'm going to specify the location of this. So I just click on one edge, and you see it gives me a dimension there, and I can put in 30. And then I left click on this edge, and then I put in 25 and press enter. So now that I'm finished with this, I can click OK. And you can see it's drawn the hole, and it's also done an extrusion cut all the way through. Click back on the house to get back where we were, and then I want to draw a rectangle. I'm going to hold down my shift and use my mouse wheel. I want to draw a sketch on this edge. So I'm going to use 2-point rectangle, and I'm just going to draw it some arbitrary size, and then I'm going to dimension it from here to here of 0, and then dimension it here to here, this line of 0, and that way I'm positive that it's on that line and that line. Okay, the dimension here is 15, and then this line is 20. If you have a problem, like when I tried to pick this line, it picked that whole line, then you can always pick a point and a point. Whoops. Okay, let me try again. Let me click on a line. There you go. I can click on that, and the point's a little trickier, but I did get it, and that's just letting you know that I got a couple of extra dimensions there. So I'm going to right click, finish sketch, and I want to go to my home here. Whoop, maybe I go to another corner. There you go. Do an extrude, click that surface. I want to do a cut, and for my distance, I'm going to say 2 next. So that way it just cuts it until it comes to another feature that's been cut. So I'm going to right click, and I'm out of that, and it's time for the last question. How do you change the appearance of a model? So if I needed to see something that was behind or on the inside of this, I could go to View, Visual Style, and I'm just going to click on Wireframe for you to see what that looks like. So you can see that it would be, well, it's difficult for me anyway to draw in this type of view. But sometimes I do like to see, you know, does that hole go all the way through? Or maybe I want to see something about some feature that I've done. They're shaded with edges. Some people asked me the other day about these lines showing where the curve blends in with the side. So you can just show smooth shaded, and it takes those out. I like to see the lines. Just it helps me get a better idea of what we're looking at. A couple of things that were in the PowerPoint that are not included in any of the questions. If you ever turn off this browser bar, which is easy to do, or you turn off your view cube or your navigation bar, you can go to View and User Interface. Excuse me. And these are, see, that turns it on and off. And maybe you don't use it and you like to clear up the screen, or the navigation bar. So that's how to turn those on and off. I wanted to be sure I went over everything else. Tools, document settings, units. Here's how you can change the way the dimensions appear. I mean, if you want to use fewer decimal places, you can. You click on Apply and Close. That will show up in your dimensions. Now, I didn't have any decimal places for these anyway, so that's not going to show. One more thing, I'm going to use Inspect and Measure, and I'm just going to click on that circle, and it will tell me the dimensions of it. So you don't have to go back to your sketch, and it gives me the dimensions of that. Click on that line, it gives me the dimension from the edge to the center of that line. So that's just a quick way to find out how long a line is without going back to your sketch. So I covered everything that was in the quiz. I covered everything that I'm going to expect you to know on the PowerPoint. The only other thing I can think of, this one was metric, but the lab assignments for this section are English. So if I get out of this one, ready to start a new one, new, and then I'm going to click on English and Standard IPT and create for the next one. I do see there's one command that I did not talk about, but you know there's lots of options of like the circle command and rectangle. I'm going to start a sketch, and I'm just going to start it. I think I'll start it on this bottom plane a little bit. Just try to get you started for the Lab 4. If you look under rectangle, then you can see we've got some slot choices, and Lab number 4 does consist of an oval shape like this. Now you could do a rectangle, you could add some circles to it, but let me show you how easy slot is to use under the rectangle command. So I'm going to specify one of my holes to be in the center. This other one goes out. I meant the center to be at the origin is what I meant. This other one, let's see, to the other center is 2.5. And then as I go this way, then I can put in my size this way, and it looks like the outer one has a 1-inch radius, which is going to be a 2-inch diameter. So I can draw that. And then I'm going to right click OK. And I kind of would like to, nope, okay, let me do it over again. I wanted you to see, let's see, this was 2.5, and then this one was 2. And before I right click and press Finish Sketch, I wanted you to see everything, the constraints that were automatically added with this slot command. We got tangents, so we got 4 tangent locations, parallel locations, horizontal locations, sizes. So a lot of things that were incorporated in that particular command. So I could put some other shapes in here, the 2 center circles. I could decide where I'm going to cut this off, and then I can extrude that. That's all I can think of for these labs.